This is assignment 4.3.2 by Joy Webber. Quantitative data collection. However, first of all, before I describe the four methods of collecting quant data, I'm going to explain what quantitative data is. You can collect quantitative data in a number of methods, and this can either be done in using statistical, mathematical, or numerical analysis of data. It can be collected in a variety of ways, such as polls, questionnaires, or surveys. Quant data uses measurable data to formulate facts and uncover patterns in research. There are four different ways of collecting quantitative data. These are a lab experiment, field experiment, observational national analysis, and questionnaires. Repeated measures are where you'd use the same participants are used in both conditions. Independent groups are different unrelated groups in the same condition. Is where you would use different unrelated groups in the same condition and then you just compare it. Crossover designs is where participants are exposed to one or more treatment but the second condition is affected by the first. Control groups are where they are tested against the experimental groups but they have different conditions. And I'm now going to move on to the advantages of using quant data. One of the advantages is it controls confounding variables to establish a cause and effect relationship. So there the IV would not affect the DV. The data can also be collected fast and analysed quickly. There's more control for the researcher, as it's, for example, could sometimes be done inside a lab, so therefore you just have control. It allows you to generalise findings beyond the participant in the group. Disadvantage is it is questionable generalisation. Is because it is like you're doing it in like a one-to-one basis, so it cannot be generalised to like the like a wider population, as it's just specific to that person that you'd be interviewing. It's a limited ability to probe the answers because obviously you're just answering, well, you're just gaining answers from just specific questions. Like you don't really change it with quant data. It's got limitations due to ethics. It's because you've just got lots of ethical issues that you have to abide by when you're doing this. And this another disadvantage is participant awareness. We're now going to move on to questionnaires. Questionnaires are a set of self-printed or written questions with a choice of answers. This is devised for the purpose of the survey or the statistical study. Questionnaires can be paper-based or electronic. And they can either be structured, unstructured, or semi-structured. An advantage of a questionnaire is that it's fast data collection, because often they do not take much time to do, and it's just an easy way of just finding out the data that you want and just being able to ask specific questions to be able to get the answer that you want. It is another advantage of questionnaires is that it is cost efficient. It doesn't really cost much to just type out a questionnaire on a computer and print it off, or just hand it out. They're very easy to carry out, as I just said. All you have to do is just come up with the questions, type it out, give it to them, get them to answer it. So it's very, very simple, and you can also cover all aspects of a topic by answering specific questions that are specific to the answer that you want to give. Disadvantages of questionnaires: it's hard to convey feelings and emotions as you're just answering. They're just writing down their answers. You can't actually hear what they're trying to say. Whereas if you videoed it, it can be time consuming, and there can be a large sample size, and you can misinterpret information because obviously you can't hear like the tone in their. I'm now going to move on to observational analysis, and this is when you are carrying out an observation analysis. You are purely observing what you're watching and annotating what is happening. As you are simply just watching what happens, there is no way you can manipulate it. Advantages are that it will show the strengths and weaknesses of the thing you're observing, as you're simply just watching what happens, so you can see if something is good or not. It allows comparison because you compare between the people that you are watching. You can also value all contributions for the performance. So, for example, if you're watching a game and the team that like a football game and the team wins 4-0, and the striker has scored 3 goals, you can obviously see that he's done well. However, when you look back at the footage, you can also like to see if other players have contributed to that win as well, and if someone else has played well. If someone else has played well to contribute to the win. Another advantage is that it's a video or audio recording. A disadvantage is it requires several observers, as obviously you can't just have one observer watching at once. You might need a variety to actually, in order to be able to see and take down all of what's going on. The observer may require training, which could also bring in the cost element as well, as you need to pay for them to be trained. It can reduce confidence as it is comparative. So say if you were comparing 2 players and how they played in a game, it might lower their confidence if you're saying to one player that they played better than them, and that may knock their confidence. It also may miss some behaviours, as obviously your eyes can't be everywhere, so yeah, it's not possible to see everything that's going on, and which will reduce the validity of the experiment. I'm now going to move on to field experiment. A field experiment applies the scientific method to experimentally examine the participants in their natural environment. The environment is also a lot more natural to the performer. So, for example, within gymnastics, if a gymnast was tested in their local gym, it would be a lot more natural to the experiment. No, to the gymnast. The advantage is that it helps to support ecological validity for their research, as the participant is being tested in their natural environment, which will increase validity. It also reduces demand characteristics, so that the participant will not know that they are being observed, so they won't change anything. It's also cheaper and more accessible, which is always a good thing. Disadvantages: it could be time consuming. It's difficult to control the confounding variables, and equipment is less sophisticated outside of a lab. We're now moving on to the lab experiment. There are 3 types of lab experiments. These are a true experiment, a pre-experiment, and a quasi-experiment. A true experiment has random assignment, manipulation, and control, and a pre-experiment has controls and random assignment, and finally a quasi-experiment has random allocation and manipulation. The advantages of a lab experiment is in a controlled environment, so therefore you can have control over what you want to manipulate within the experiment to get the best results that you want. It also has a high internal validity, as you are basically controlling the experiment. It can be replicable as normally you're using the gold standard, so therefore you can just replicate it again. The extraneous variables are also controlled, and it can allow for measuring of specific variables. Disadvantage is that it's low in ecological validity because it's not in the field of work they are used to, so it may change the results. It is expensive. It also may reduce the demand characteristics, as the participant may feel they need to please the researcher, so may change the way they behave. It also will reduce social desirability. No, it also has social desirability because they also may try and act different to try please the researcher, and it also another disadvantage is evaluation apprehension, as the participant may feel they are being judged, so may act differently as a result of this.